Here we go. Anyway, La Biblioteca provides many programs and services to the community. They certainly are foundational. Like other NGOs or not-for-profits, they can only do this through donations. So that I would ask that if you were able, and it's on your heart today, on your way out, there's a little basket. If you would like to make a donation to La Biblioteca, it would greatly be appreciated. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you to the staff at La Biblioteca for scheduling this event, and most especially Marie Mobius, Brenda Hernandez, Sandra Torres, and the famous Deborah Bouchard. Also a shout out to Diego, the Flash, San Miguel de Allende's #1 streaming expert. Diego, how many people do we have on Zoom? Okay, that's a start. My name is Ron Walters, also known as Don Ron. That's a long story. If you want to hear it, see me afterwards. I'm an agent with RE/MAX Colonial here in San Miguel de Allende. By no means am I a top expert here, but I do have one of the top experts with me to co-present today. I am originally from Camden, New Jersey, which is across the river from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So my accent is a Philly accent with a New Jersey twang. I do apologize. Even after living in West Palm Beach, Florida for 25 years prior to coming here, I still have the accent. I lived in West Palm Beach. I had a real estate license there, and I also worked in marketing, consulting, sales, and vice president roles for multi-billion-dollar American corporations. I resided in San Miguel de Allende for 3 years and 4 months as of yesterday, and live in Tierra Dentro, villas, and condominio. With me today is one who I consider a top expert in the San Miguel de Allende real estate market. That is Senior Lane Simmons. He's the owner-broker of RE/MAX Colonial, which has been here for 27 years. Lane is a certified international real estate specialist and a global member of the USA National Association of Realtors. He is a member and former board member of the Mexican Association of Real Estate Professionals here. I have to take a deep breath for this one. And he is also accredited by the Secretary of Sustainable Economic Development in the state of Guanajuato. Whew. He does a lot. He's a busy man. He also serves on the board of directors for the San Miguel Community Foundation here, which supports a lot of the NGOs that I mentioned earlier. Our presentation today will be short comparatively to most who have probably attended, so we have ample time to answer any real estate related questions you have. And let me start at the 5,000-foot level. I think the normal progression in choosing a city to live in would be to pick a country first. That's kind of what I did. So let's talk about Mexico. What's going on in Mexico? Why Mexico? Why even consider it? There are 32 states here, all uniquely different. Mexico has a stable government and a very strong economic outlook. Mexico offers housing for anyone's likes, takes, and budget. Mexico has beaches, forests, mountains, even deserts. And I just found this out that San Miguel de Allende is actually considered a high desert. Why is Mexico a great country to reside in or invest in? There are many reasons that are attractive to retirees, world travelers, investors, digital nomads, or anyone actually looking for a better quality of life. My story is, has anyone here heard of International Living Magazine? Okay, well, before retiring, I subscribed to that for a few years. And for those who don't know, once a year, they publish one of the magazines, the top 25 countries in the world to retire. And faithfully, every year, Mexico is always in the number 3 or 4 spot. So they edge it out, and I shortlisted mine to retire to Panama, Costa Rica, Ecuador, or Mexico. And what was on my list of the criteria to pick a country to live in was weather, safety, the cost of living, and no military coups. Now let me explain the last one. A friend of mine from Panama who works for Homeland Security in the United States, I had a conversation with him where I told him I'm considering moving to Panama. He's Panamanian. He said to me, don't go there, Ron. Go to Nicaragua. Nicaragua is much better. Well, 6 months later, Nicaragua had a military coup and they dropped it right off the international living list. So something that most people won't think about. For the only the second time in recent history, Mexico was the top overall U.S. trading partner for the year, beating out China and everyone else. I want to talk to you about nearshoring. Nearshoring, rather than outshoring, is the process of moving manufacturing or business operations closer to the customers to limit their vulnerability to shipping problems, cost of goods, geopolitical tensions, and uncertainty with the war. Last year alone, $36 billion in direct foreign investments came into Mexico. Moving to Mexico is a logical choice for companies serving the world's largest consumer market, which is the United States, for a variety of reasons, including competitive labor rates, labor availability, quality of goods produced, delivery lead time, logistics costs, and no tariffs. Many of the companies coming here are from China, US, South Korea, Japan, Germany, and Turkey. I have a little bit of a pop quiz now. I want to talk about the exports. The top 3 exports from Mexico to the US in 2023 were passenger vehicles in the amount of $45 billion. Mexico provides 18.1% of the passenger vehicles in the world. Number 2, and this kind of relates to number 1, the number 2 largest export was auto parts. Makes sense. $35 billion. The third item for $12 billion, if someone knows it or can guess it, what the third item was, I have a brand new $2 bill here. Actually, I have a stack of them. But you know? No. Computer chips. Who would have thunk, right? And here are some of the many corporations building here are already doing business here. But now that I've gone to the 5,000 foot level, let's drill down to why we're here today. San Miguel de Allende. Let's talk about this amazing city. Ranked as one of the most beautiful cities in the world, along with Paris, Barcelona, Amsterdam, Rome, and London. We are indeed a travel destination. Ranked the #1 small city in the world by magazines like Travel and Leisure, Condé Nast Traveler, Forbes, and Travel. It's not only known for its beauty, but also its charm, food, culture, and people. There's a rich history here. They've been around for a while, quite a few hundred years. From an ancient pyramid to conspiracy and revolution to Sterling Dickinson, it's all here. If you like colonial, Spanish, Baroque architecture, this city has it all. By the way, there is something being celebrated here just about every week. You probably know that. Now, arts, music, and fashion. We have much diversity and a wide range of things to do or see. We are known for arts, music, and fashion. We have opera. We have mariachi. We have a symphony orchestra. We have Mexican folk dancing, ballet, salsa, and tango. Our art studios and clothing boutiques are countless. And best of all, we have a Day of the Locos parade. For those of you that don't live here, sorry about that. Cost of living. Although San Miguel de Allende is more expensive than most other Mexican cities, our goods and services, especially our property taxes and utilities, are much less than it would be in the United States or in many other countries. The weather. I mentioned earlier the criteria, yeah, whether or not. I mentioned earlier the criteria for me, one of them was weather. Well, in August of 2020, near the height of COVID, I decided to get some dental work done in Cancun, Mexico, which is #1 in the country, by the way, for dental work. So I was going there for a week to get some work done. And I did some research, and I had made up my mind that my wife and I were going to move to Playa del Carmen. So one day we took a ride down to Playa del Carmen, and I had to set up appointments with realtors. And I looked at property, and after about 2 hours, I felt like I was in a sauna for 12 hours. So I could literally wring out my shirt. So I looked at my wife and I said, "Wife, we could do this in Florida. Why would we move here? The humidity is horrible." This is a true story. So I Googled low humidity cities in Mexico. San Miguel was one of the top to pop up. And me, from reading International Living magazine, every other issue has an article about San Miguel de Allende. I'm like, oh, San Miguel de Allende. I know it. I've never been there. I sold my house in one day, packed 6 suitcases, and moved here. So here we have Clima Perfecta. There's no humidity. There's no tornadoes. There's no hurricanes. There's no earthquakes. There's no blizzards, and no volcanoes. Giving. If you have the time and or money to give to worthy organizations, we have many. I Googled NGOs, non-governmental organizations or not-for-profits, the other day, and came up with 86 organizations. I personally volunteer here at La Biblioteca. They're wonderful people to work with. I volunteer for SOME, S-O-M-E, so others may eat. See them up there. And I'm also part of Midday Rotary, which is part of Rotary International. After about 2 years here, it popped in my head the real reason to be here in San Miguel is the quality of life. We have it all: world-class restaurants, hotels, grocery stores. We have great health care and hospitals with ambulance services. By the way, Querétaro, 1 hour away, has some of the best hospitals in Mexico, and many of them are under 2-3 years old. Our municipal services are amazing, including cleaning our streets, picking up our trash every day except Sunday. The landscaping in our parks is flawless. We have a good infrastructure and services for water, electric, and internet. You can teach or take lessons in art, dancing, chess, quilt making, tennis, pickleball, just to name a few. And there is quality free entertainment throughout the city all year long. If you want to sit in any of our beautiful parks and people watch, well, you can do that too. We have it all. One of the most important aspects of the city is safety and security. We are not a crime-free city, but the reality is that none exist. Our police force is large, and the presence can be seen not only in Centro, but throughout the city, especially during holiday or vacation times when there is high visitation. San Miguel de Allende's police receive the highest salary of any city in the state of Guanajuato and the highest life insurance in Mexico, thanks to Mauricio Trejo. This helps attract quality law enforcement personnel, and I want to let you know that you're being watched. They do have a real-time crime center. They have camera system throughout the city that is second to none, and it is monitored 24/7. So this is our amazing city. I am now done with my portion of the presentation, and I'd like to introduce Senor Lane Simmons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. So, quick history, I guess, for those of you that anybody here that doesn't know me, I'm originally from Austin, Texas, if I have to admit that by my accent. Pardon me? It was that you can always tell a Texan, you just can't tell us much, you know. So I'm going to kind of read my notes so I go quickly here. Um, the we my affair with Mexico began back in the 70s, late 70s, in the eastern part of the country in a state called Veracruz, um, long before Mexico's laws permitted foreigners to own real estate here. And my first visit to San Miguel was in 1991, actually July in 91. I came here to escape the heat in Texas in July. We have sort of two seasons here, I think. The winter, when the snowbirds come from the north, and then the summer, when the sweat birds or whatever from the south come here to escape the heat. My wife, who's here with me today, who's been tolerating me since high school in Austin, Texas, agreed to move to Mexico in '93. But I thought there were too many gringos in San Miguel. For those that complain about all the development and all the new gringos, in 1991, when I got here, you could pull up in front of the church on the Jardine and make hot dogs, and I thought there were too many gringos here then. So we moved to the state south of here, Michoacan, and lived there for a little over a year. But it got kind of a little revolution. It got a little rough there back then. So in 1995, we decided, let's go back where all those gringos are. And in '97, we adopted two children here. So I got into real estate to be able to afford the diapers. And now I've been a real estate broker with Remax here for 27 years. During that time, the majority of clients that I've worked with have been foreigners, and I've observed some significant turning points, red letter dates, or whatever you want to call it, that I think are very relevant to people's motivation for shopping here for real estate, especially U.S. citizens. And see, that's me patrolling. In the late '90s, I was an instructor at the police academy here, and would go at nighttime patrols and daytime patrols with our preventative police. And that was, yeah, back then, I thought it was like Barney Fife at the police academy. That was actually San Miguel's first police academy ever. Prior to that, it was just give them a gun and a badge and say, if you catch them, bring them here. We pay you on Fridays or whatever. But they had but now I think they got 2 bullets a year, 2 cartridges a year for practice. Now we've got a really, really solid police force, a lot of equipment, and a couple of, given my experience with the police academy, and a lot of my students from back then are like cops today, or judicial police have moved up to the state level. So I have a lot of friends in high and low places. That gives me so when I talk about security here, it's more than just a statistical thing. I think we've got, security-wise, there's 2 really important features. One is what I call geographical immunity. We are not on a transit route to the border. We're not a border crossing. We're not a port where the methamphetamine precursor chemicals and stuff come in. So really, the cartels don't have a particular interest in San Miguel. If you're running drugs from the growing areas on the coast to the border, you have to control every city that you're going to be traveling through. If we're running a load of dope from Michoacan to Laredo, we're not going to take off of the highway for 45 minutes to come to San Miguel for a cup of coffee. So really, that's kind of people say I shouldn't put it this way, but I say the cartel's only interest in San Miguel is who gets to sell cocaine in the disco bathroom, or whatever. But it's just for consumption. We do have occasional issues with them because of the conflict between the cartels. But that's the majority of that. A really important thing now, I was honored to be invited to what they call the C4 Center here. You can do a crime in San Miguel, but the big problem with crime is the escape. And if you do something here, these guys, we have lots of cameras. We're getting more cameras, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people are monitoring all of these cameras. So if you do a crime somewhere, they can go back through their footage and figure out where you came from, what cars came in and out of that area, and they have a really super strategy for how they track people down and catch perpetrators. So the C4 Center, I think, is the most valuable aspect of the security that we've got right now. And this is what I consider the first really key date that I experienced here in San Miguel. I think pretty much everybody knows where they were on 9/11 when they saw what happened in New York that day. And those of us here, like people everywhere, were just kind of paralyzed, like stunned, I guess would be a good way of putting it. And right then, word started going around town that there was going to be a gathering in the Jardín. And this is what those of us who were here back then experienced. People brought candles. They made little like styrofoam white doves into necklaces, and had an event, a gathering that they referred to as a manifestation of solidarity for the foreigners, particularly the U.S. citizens here in San Miguel. It was a really emotional experience for me. And after what happened that year, for the first time, I started seeing U.S. citizens checking out San Miguel, not just because of what San Miguel has to offer, but also because for the first time ever, they were really motivated to start considering options of places to live other than in the United States. So prior to 2001, people were attracted here for all the reasons that Ron covered and more. But San Miguel's selling points really wouldn't matter. And we certainly wouldn't feel safe here if we didn't feel wanted here. And given the part of the history that I hesitate to go into between the United States and Mexico, I really wouldn't have been shocked if they had cheered over what happened in New York on that day, given the number of times we've invaded Mexico, or the stories of Texas and New Mexico and California and everything else. So it was like, I wondered what would happen if we're living here, I have children here, what would happen if suddenly the US dollar collapsed, if suddenly we had no value to the people here. And that day I saw what happened. Old people, young people. When people ask people, why do you live here? Some will say the weather, some will say the cost of living. I say the people. After this day in the Jardín, I felt safer and better about selling real estate here than I ever have before. After 2011, the market activity really started picking up. Between 2001 and 2007, I watched real estate prices here go from an average of about $135,000 in 2001 to $170,000 by 2007. The 2008 2008, 2009, everybody kind of knows what happened. The United States economy and greatly around the world greatly collapsed. Our real estate market got so bad that within a year or two, Mexican media was talking about how rotten the real estate market here was. We'd see articles that said every other house is for sale. It looks like the people just abandoned the town. And coincidentally, that year in 2008, we got a really good push because UNESCO declared us and the town of Atotonilco to be World Heritage Sites. Then 2010, Travel and Leisure started talking a lot about San Miguel. 2013, Condé Nast Traveler started hitting on us, and that was and we by 2013 things had really picked up, particularly because of Mexicans who came back to say who would come here in 2005, 6, 7 and think, oh man, these dollar prices, it's crazy. When the market collapsed like 90% after the subprime crisis in the United States, it wasn't long before Mexicans started coming back and picking up the market, picking up deals on real estate because the prices had dropped substantially. The next major turning point that I don't want to get into the politics of things, but the bottom line is the presidential election in the United States in 2016, it led to this interview with CNN interviewed me. And it was interesting to me that they were talking about the increase in people coming here. And it described it as the growing number of people who are drawn to San Miguel and pushed away from the United States. So sort of like 2001, got people thinking, well, maybe there's other places to consider. At this CNN interview, they said, first they said, we would not have, they called from Mexico City. So we'd like to talk to you. I'm like, well, what about? And they said, reverse the immigration. And I thought that meant Mexicans coming back to Mexico. Because, all my redneck friends in Texas and they would send me all these things about Mexicans taking their jobs and stuff. And actually for the last 10 years, a lot more Mexicans have moved back to Mexico than have gone from Mexico to the United States. So I thought I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And I meet with them there on the Hardin. They hook the little mic thing up to me, turn on the camera, and the interviewer, the CNN lady says, so was Donald Trump's election good for your business? I'm like, oh, okay, I see where you're going with this. Well, frankly, just from a purely selfish point of view in real estate, it didn't matter to me who won, because that would mean the other half of the country were going to start looking somewhere else. And then in 2000, and I'll end with another key date that I'm predicting, and then 2017, 2018 was the first time I think Condé Nast Traveler, 2 years in a row, named us the #1 city in the world. And it blew kind of a bubble. So 2017, the mic? Okay. So we're 2017, 2018, we got a publicity bubble blown, really, by Condé Nast Traveler. And you can see what happened to the number of real estate transactions during those 2 years that really peaked in 2018. In 2019, the narco war, the battle between the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel, kind of a regional cartel, and the Jalisco Nuevo Generacion cartel from Jalisco, which is, I believe, the most powerful in Mexico, were moving this way. And there was a turf war. I think in 2019, we had something like 113 murders, hit jobs here in San Miguel that I'm aware of. And to the U.S. press that takes every opportunity they can get to to discourage people from taking their money to Mexico, the press was so bad that in 2019 the market really dumped, and everybody knows what happened in 2020. Uh, the COVID thing, obviously when you're locked, when we had to lock our office down and you weren't supposed to leave your home except for essential stuff, there weren't a lot of real estate sales going on. But something happened. The way I put it, discussing it with my team and the agency, is after 3 months, 4 months locked in our homes, I'm getting the feeling that the word home means something it's never meant before. And in 2021, we started seeing a huge increase in sales, beating our previous peak in 2018. And in 2021, 2022, this really surprising phenomenon to me, we started seeing a number of sales here, people buying real estate in San Miguel that had never saw the house, that was like a virtual tour of the place. And they're like, okay, we're going to put in an offer. I'm like, well, you haven't seen it, We had some that bought here that had never been to San Miguel, never even been to San Miguel, to central Mexico. But the publicity carried us through that. And this is what's been happening with selling prices from this 2018 to 2022, which is the last year that I've got full stats for. And just one of the things about this so you can see 2022 by far was the best year ever in real estate here, or at least, ever in my 27 years of doing this. And I'm hearing real estate agents saying, oh, well, the average price here is around $500,000 now. Numbers can be misleading. If you take the lowest sale in San Miguel and the highest sale in San Miguel, because of the number of sales over $2 million, one of the sales I was involved in 2022 was 5.5 million. You average that and you come up with a number that's 500,000. But as you can see from this, the vast majority of our sales are in the $1 to 300,000 price range. I really never aspired to be working in an elitist market. So one of the things that pleases me about all of the new investment and the market in general is that there's plenty of stuff, as Ron had mentioned, in pretty much any price range. Where our buyers come from has always been more foreigners, particularly gringos. In my experience, the majority, although they're from everywhere, I would say Texas, New York, and California are where most of the people here have been coming from in the 27 years I've been watching. And now we're coming up current. This was the last numbers that I have were up to November of 2023. From 2018, not there. From 2018 to 2023, this is basically what's happened. Um, in 2023, this was only through November, but for sure in 2023, although still better than any previous year except 2022, the 2023, the number of sales did drop slightly. And an interesting thing, there's a lot of agents now that I hear saying, okay, it's a buyer's market. It is now a buyer's market in San Miguel, sort of officially. And what's happened is that beginning in about the second half of last year and through this week, every week at the local real estate association meetings where they announce properties under contract, properties that have closed, and new listings and price reductions. So really every week since about the second half of 2023, we've been seeing more than twice as many new listings every week as properties going under contract. And I should point out, though, that is not the Centro. That's not Guadiana, Guadalupe, some of the more popular areas. A lot of the new listings are in the outlying areas and the new developments around town. And an interesting thing that I had been predicting for about a year because of the exchange rate fluctuations, because the dollar going down in value compared to the peso, or the peso going up, whichever way you look at it. But by the end of 2023, we were seeing more Mexican buyers for the first time ever than U.S. buyers. And I think a lot of that was because really, if you go back a couple of years, a Mexican with pesos, because of our dollarized market, basically you take the asking price, and over the last couple of years, it's added up to about a 15% discount for Mexicans because their peso is buying that much more in dollars. People said, well, a lot of people are going to be there today to find out, well, what's my house worth? What can I sell it for? And I'm now more than ever looking at real estate as commodities. Basically, what you're buying here, unlike the United States and other places where I consider the homes to be disposable, and the older the construction, the less the value of the property. It's funny, when I became a certified international real estate specialist and was able to put properties into the MLS in the United States, I thought, I'm looking at this age of construction, and I'm like, well, 150 years, 200 years, which means something totally different there, where stuff dissolves if it gets wet. But what you're buying here is cement and concrete and steel and a lot of copper. And so this is what's happened just in the past few years. The appreciation, what they said in the last, I think for the last several days, gold has hit a all-time record high every day now for several days. Central banks are loading up on it, and but where do you keep it? If you invest in that, and it's just sitting there, it's not producing income, unlike what you can accomplish with concrete and steel here. The concept of comparables. Everybody will show me some comps, and I can show you 10 homes that are in the same neighborhood that are exactly the same price, and no two of them are comparable. Everything here is such a custom job for the most part. It's not like the United States, where you could pick a neighborhood, pick a number of square feet, bedrooms, and go, okay, well, now we can get really close to what it's worth. So the best way to figure out what something is worth here, of course, is to work with an experienced agent that knows what they're doing, preferably an AMPI agent the Mexican Association of Real Estate Professionals, because the AMPI organization here years ago for the first time created an MLS. So an AMPI agent has access to the archives of the MLS where we can see actually what stuff's sold for. The asking prices are just that, you know, and a lot of them, particularly coming out of 2022, when the market did so well, we started seeing a lot of what I call aspirational pricing, sort of ahead of the market. But with the MLS archives, you can see exactly what has what stuff actually sold for. And AMPI agents are able to have an open house, kind of unlike the ones in the States, where all the neighbors and people come by. Here, for more than anything, the open houses are to invite the other real estate professionals to give opinions about the value of the price. But as Ron frequently reminds me, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and ultimately the prices are determined by the agreement between the buyer and the seller. And a lot of the sellers are, for divorce, family reasons, financial reasons, a lot of them are much more motivated to sell than others. And AMPI, to run that down quickly for anybody not familiar with it, the AMPI, the Mexican Association of Real Estate Professionals, is basically the equivalent of the National Association of Realtors in the States. And the brokers here are members of the NAR as well as AMPI. How this benefits buyers and sellers is the MLS. One of the discouraging things here, challenges for many years, if you go online looking for real estate, a disappointing number of those properties are gone. We don't have the strict regulations about it. So there have been times when 20-30% of the properties that I could find searching websites had sold years ago, but they leave them on there because they get a lot of calls, oh yeah, we'll set an appointment. And then you get in the car and they go, oh, we just sold that one, but here, I'm going to show you another one. The MLS is the closest thing, which for the moment is still open to the public, not the archives, but the listings. So it gives people, that's the MLS Allende is the best way to search for properties that are more likely to actually be available. We've got a very strict code of ethics to be an AMPI. The accreditation requirements, which is basically the equivalence of licensing in the United States and elsewhere. And because of the working together every week, all of the real estate agencies and agents have a weekly meeting where they share listings and everything. So now the majority of sales here are co-brokered between more than one agency. And now, as of this week, there are 56 agencies with 273 members here in San Miguel. And just a couple of quick, this was a Bloomberg article towards the end of last year. Last year, more than ever in my 27 years of doing this, we're seeing, in addition to, it's a cheap place to live, the weather's great, whatever, we're starting to get a lot of publicity about Mexico as an investment destination. And I guess you couldn't hardly get a better comment than the Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Morgan Chase, describing it as a great opportunity. If you had to pick a country, Mexico might be the number one opportunity. Then most of the, what I've seen, and you've experienced this, most of the people that come to San Miguel fall in love with it. In my 27 years of doing this, I can't even think of how many people years later say, I don't know if you remember me, but we met in the Hardin 15 years ago. We've been here 3 times since then, and we're ready to pull the trigger. So it was interesting to me to see these stats about travelers. Expresses statistics for showing that going into this year, uh, there was a 400% increase in bookings for travel to here among Gen Z and millennial travelers. And honestly, I had to look that up. I get I get mixed up with all of that, but that's basically people in their 20s to early 40s. So because of my experience over the years, I can tell you that that 400% increase in people in that age bracket are going to be the people driving our real estate market into the future when they reach a point where they can't stand to not live here anymore. Um, this is, and this is a great interview. The last of these types of things I'll do, but this was a really great interview with the guy that's the founder and chairman of a global real estate management and investment group called Thor Equities, and this is about a 9-minute interview that where he's talking about not only is he describing why they shifted from Europe and other places to Mexico, but in addition to Mexico being a golden opportunity, he even gets into depth about how Mexico is becoming the answer to a lot of the United States economic problems. And if you are interested in links to this interview or any of that stuff, just let us know, and glad you send you an email with the links to it. And last but not least, there's a Ron was talking about how many feet, 6,005. This is literally a 30,000 foot overview of San Miguel. One of our clients, who's become a dear friend, flew over, and this was somebody that through virtual tours, FaceTime, whatever, decided to buy a home here in San Miguel. They had never been to they'd never seen the home, and they had never even been to San Miguel. So when they pulled the trigger and bought this property that they bought, the closest that the buyer had gotten to San Miguel was flying over at 30,000 feet and took this photo. Always the biggest part of our market has been retirees, citizens hitting retirement, and U.S. citizens in 2001 was 2,007 million. By 2011, that had gone up 73% to 3.95 million as the baby boomers hit retirement age. And now we're looking at 4 million a year through the late 2020s. One of the things that we didn't have when we got here, when people got old, they went back to wherever they came from. When their parents got old and they needed to take care of them, they went back to wherever they came from to take care of their family. We moved my mother here about 2 years ago, rather than the horrible, the incomprehensive expense of in-home health care in the United States and the medical system and everything. Now, the number of assisted living facilities, the cost of quality in-home caregivers that actually care. I mean, I don't want to seem racist about gringos, but the caring that we experienced with caregivers for our mother in the United States was distressing, depressing. Here, she's got people 24/7. She can bite them, hit them with her walker, and they're like, "Oh, Janice, you know," and do her hair, and they love her, and it's just the heart of the Mexican people is why I'm here. We have a new batch of folks coming, the digital nomads, who so many people now are able to work online. They can live anywhere, and that's certainly driving up a lot of the market here, particularly in Mexico City. And as I mentioned earlier, the exchange rate change has made the market here much more attractive for Mexican buyers. And I don't see that going in an opposite direction anytime soon. I ran across the other day, the U.S. national debt is about 128%, far north of 100% of their GDP. And economically, I wish for the best, but economically, no nation ever in history has survived that situation. Whereas Mexico's debt to GDP is less than 50%, and certainly sustainable for all of the reasons that Ron shared about foreign investment here. And speaking of investment, we're seeing a number of people now bailing out of the United States stock market. And particularly the commercial real estate market, buying properties here as a place to park their money where it can't evaporate. So like gold or precious metals, it's not just going to vanish like Lehman Brothers stock. But unlike precious metals, the commodities here of cement and steel, when turned into a home, can produce income. And last, particularly in the last couple of years, particularly since COVID, we're seeing lots of people from the United States, New Zealand, Australia, Ukraine. We had some folks in this year from Ukraine. And it seems like no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, wherever you're from, you're pretty sick of it. And we're seeing a lot of that going on right now. And so I refer to a lot of our clients these days as socio-political refugees, and also, particularly in the last few years, property tax refugees, people who own a home in San Francisco that literally can't keep it, can't afford to pay the annual property taxes every year. You know, as an example, we bought my mom, we sold a place of hers in northern Texas for about $450, where she was paying, I think, with senior discounts and homestead and everything, she was paying like $9,000 a year for a $450,000 house. So what it sold for. So we sold her place there, bought her a place here, and her property tax, but at the same price, and her property tax this year was like $137. One of my competitors that I think very highly of, I saw do a YouTube video the other day and was talking about how a lot of people are able to live here all year, cover their expenses just off of what they're saving in property taxes here in San Miguel. And the last thing I'll mention, kind of perhaps controversially, the next key date that I see is November 5th of this year and the election in the United States. I'm already seeing articles in Washington Post of people that have already left and are picking places in Mexico, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Europe, wherever, and not being politically biased one way or the other. I'll just say that like 2016, after this presidential election in the United States, probably the other half or so of the country are going to be ready to get out of there. And that's what I got to say. Thank you for your time, tolerating my long-windedness.
Okay, time for that gentleman in the back.
Hello. Online, I've read that if you live 50 kilometers from the coast in Mexico or 100 kilometers from the border, you cannot own property. You have to do this. Fideicomiso? ¿Cómo se dice?
Yeah, well, when I fell in love with the country, You couldn't work here, you couldn't live, you couldn't own property here. In '89, they changed that. In '89, to attract foreign investment, they changed the laws about foreigners owning property here, but they protected the coastal areas and the border areas. So there, you cannot own direct title to real estate. It has to be held in a what they call a fideicomiso, which literally translated would be a bank trust, which I think are two words that should never be used together. And so that's what I mean. The bank holds the title, and you have it forever. It's like automatically renewable for 99. You can leave it to your heirs. You can rent it. You know, you have a lot of practical rights of ownership. But in this part of Mexico, what you do in the interior, they call it a permiso. Anybody that's bought something here, well, now we got to do your permiso, which means permit. I really don't like calling it a permit because they don't say no. What it is you sign a document and make a deal with Mexican Foreign Ministry Exterior Relations, they call it, whereby you are agreeing that Mexico will have 100% jurisdiction over the property, and you will not invoke your own government wherever you're from for anything to do with that property. And in exchange, then you are treated as a Mexican citizen with regard to the rights to that property. So that's how you get direct title, fee simple, I think they call it. Yeah.
Oh, since I have the mic, I'll steal one more, please. What percentage of your sales are mortgages compared to buying outright?
Almost none. Almost none. And Ron could address this in terms of why. And because I've been here, people say, well, oh, were you in real estate before you came to Mexico? And I say, only as a victim. I've done some interesting things, but never real estate. And so I didn't have that much experience with it. And here, one of the things that holds our market so solidly is that it's held in pretty strong hands. 95% of the acquisitions here are cash deals. There is sporadically there is financing available for foreigners, but the interest rates and the points or whatever it is they call it to originate the loan or whatever are so tough that over the years, the people that I've worked with that just didn't want to shell out the cash, what they would do is go back to the States or wherever and do what we used to call an equity recovery loan, where they would borrow against whatever they had there and use that cash to buy here. So not a lot of maybe 5% of the transactions here involve financing. Yes, sir.
Are selling prices and rental prices increasing, stable, or decreasing?
I'm seeing stuff go up significantly. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. A lot of it because the people coming from the States, the middle class has been crushed, and it's continuing. So we're seeing and real estate sales going down in the States because of, like I say, getting more listings than sales may be called a buyer's market, but to me it's a healthy market. In the United States, they blew a bubble because of the lack of product. So a lot of people in the States are sitting on they can't find something that's not ridiculously priced, or they're in it at 3%, and it doesn't make sense to buy something else at 5% or 6% or whatever it is now. So that's bringing a lot of people here that really can't afford to shell out the cash. So the rental rates and the availability is affected by that.
She's next. Okay, one moment.
Thank you. So can you talk about the pros and cons of living in Centro versus on the exterior? And I know I hear folks who say, no, I want to move here and I want to live in Centro, and then they've been here a year and they're like, okay, now I want to move to the outskirts. So I'm interested in understanding the pros and cons. And I think the other thing you mentioned, that there's some neighborhoods that hold their value versus on the exterior. So as in terms of an investment, what are things that we should be looking at in terms of neighborhoods?
The first thing over the years, the first thing I ask, I've done a lot of buyer representation, and the first thing I ask is, if you bought something here, would you be here full time or part time? And I hope they say full time, because then I can get them something, a lot better deal. Then we don't have to have rental income property, and we can, when our kids got big enough to want to walk outside, we were living in Colonia San Antonio or in the edge of Centro, and I'm like, oh my, suddenly I become aware of the traffic and the buses. And so we moved out to an area called Los Frailes, 10, 15 minutes now outside of town, when you get 40% more for your money. I love big commissions, but my sales goal this month and every month is that I will always be welcome in the home of whoever I meet. So if you can get a lot better deal somewhere, great. If they say, well, we're not going to be here full time, or at least not right away, then my next question is, well, when you're not here, is rental income important to you? And I hope they say no, because if they say yeah, I go, oh man, well, then we're competing with retail and hotel real estate prices, because you got to be, unless you're, depending on the extent to which you're willing to be misleading in your Airbnb ads, you really need to be 20 minutes or so, which kind of limits you to Guadalupe, San Antonio, or even Independencia, but you don't get out to areas outside of town where you could get, the same amount of stuff for 40% less. I don't know. Does that sort of answer and I don't think properties like it's not like Los Frailes or some of the other areas, Labradores. It's not like they're not maintaining their value or not increasing their value. They just don't have the cash flow potential. So here in the central area, you're getting, it's more like a commercial real estate investment. A lot of the criteria is what's either rental income, what's the ROI, is that helpful?
So thank you for your presentation. I do not have a question, but I wanted to know if Ron would go back to that slide in terms of digital nomads and the companies that you had up, because I just wanted to get a photo of that. You went by quickly with the companies that are investing in Mexico. Thank you.
Well, and I can say a lot of them are not any particular, a lot of them are freelancers. A lot of them that I've worked with are people that are doing web design, or, I've even had clients that moved here that the company they worked for didn't know it. They would say, oh, I got to go back to the States next week because we're required to be in the office, and they don't know I don't live there anymore.
No problem. And one thing I'll mention, February that just closed, the passenger vehicle exports for Mexico year over year for February 2024 to 2023 were 22.6% higher. Was it 26.2 higher than last year? Why is that significant? Mexico has not had one exported item that has had that type of percentage increase in 14 years. So Mexico's on fire. They're really becoming a world economy. And I see it, others predict it in maybe 10 years, but I see it as a financial world power in 3 to 5. Any other questions regarding that?
Yes, first of all, one remark on the digital nomads. I think the digital nomads are not buying, they're renting. Is that correct?
Well,
Both?
yeah, they do both. My wife is a digital nomad. She's a licensed psychotherapist. She's sitting at home right now, and she has patients in 16 different countries. And
Yeah.
we bought 2 homes and getting ready to buy another one.
I know quite a few, and they are all renting because you never know how long they can work in this country till their
it's-
employer. That's
It's a
one
mix
thing.
of both.
But
The younger ones rent.
my main question is, I've been hearing the last few months that the inventory of houses for sale has been going up quite dramatically. And if that's true, why?
Yes, it's true. That's what I was talking about earlier. We're seeing every week, at least twice as many new listings hitting the market as properties that went under contract. And it's got several factors. One, I think one is all of the developments going on in the outlying areas. I drive from here to La Burger, and I don't even know where I am because I look on the left, the right, and what's that? So the new developments outside of town and that product hitting the market is one of the reasons for it. And another, frankly, is that the real estate association has grown from like 100 agents a couple of years ago to approaching 300 agents today. So as these informal agents become formal agents, the listings they've had as pocket listings from what we somewhat affectionately refer to as the coyote agents, then they become formal agents and they dump those onto the market. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. It's not like it wasn't for sale before, but it wasn't formally being marketed.
But that means probably still that the seller's market, what it was for some time, is kept going to be more and more a buyer's market.
Yes, or hopefully a balance. Like in 2022, one of the reasons the sales went down in 2023, I think, is because of people that saw what was happening in 2022, and hey, if one got 500,000, I can get 700, and so we got what I called aspirational prices, and I think that's why we're seeing a lot of price reductions now, because they got ahead betting on that it would keep going up like that. But that's So I think it's I call it healthy. I don't like it being overloaded. We just did a matter of fact, that's as we speak. We just got an counter offer, representing a buyer. He was looking at a property priced at $1,595,000. We went back and said, what do we do? Well, I talked to him about, they're saying it's a buyer's market. Normally, we're looking at maybe 4% difference between asking and selling over the years. But I'm thinking, okay, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with offering like 10% less now, since it's a buyer's market. So we offered $1,375,000 with an asking price of $1,595,000. And I shouldn't tell you, since it hasn't closed yet, what the final deal was, but it didn't come down but like $30,000 after going back and forth and back and forth. So a lot of it has to do with how badly the people need to sell or not. Like I say, because it wasn't financed. Most of the real estate here is in pretty strong hands. If they can't get what they're asking, they'll sit on it or rent it and benefit from the rental income. So I think it's kind of a balance, which is good because that means prices are not going to go up crazy. For years leading up to 2008, we were seeing stuff going up 20% a year. That's not sustainable, as we saw in the United States when all the mortgages collapsed.
I think we should take a question from Zoom.
I wanted you to speak a little bit more about the water problem in Mexico. We hear Mexico City is approaching a crisis stage in terms of water problems. How is that affecting San Miguel, and how is that in the future going to affect real estate in San Miguel?
Well, since I moved here, even before I got into real estate, almost 30 years ago, it seems like every year I've heard that we're going to run out of water in 10 years. There was at one point they were talking about eminent domain laws in Mexico that would enable the government to confiscate the hot springs properties if necessary to bring water for residential. As a matter of fact, I almost put it into the slides because it's such a critical issue. And one of the slides that I would have put in shows the United States of America in different colors from severe to extremely severe in terms of pollution and water supply. It's a global issue of critical importance. It's one of the reasons that the foundation that I'm on the board of contributes gladly to all of the projects going on in the area that are for water catchment, improving the quality of the water in the little villages and stuff like that. So it's an issue, and we've brought our aquifer down substantially. And the development, though, one of the issues that I have with is 85% of the water being used has nothing to do with us. If every human being out of the nearly 200,000 in this municipality left tomorrow, it would have very little effect, because 85% of the water is agriculture. And if you can't stop the alfalfa growers from spray irrigating their alfalfa, the avocado farmers, so it's, like I said, in terms of my personal ethics and feelings about it, I recognize that we don't really have anything to do with it. You can stop flushing your toilet, stop drinking, stop taking showers, and it won't change things. As the agricultural methods become more sustainable, and as the government cracks down on them more and more, I think we can stretch it out further. But we do have the same water problems here that we do everywhere.
I have a question. Thank you very much for your presentation today. What is your comment that you can share with us about land, purchasing land outside of San Miguel? What is the development outside of San Miguel? How does that look on the road to Tlatelolco? Is it more commercial or is it residential, large housing?
When I'm working with client, one of the first things I try to get a feel for is their command of Spanish. The better your Spanish, the more comfortable you're going to be anywhere. If our kind of after the sale concierge service, I say 90% of what we do has nothing to do with selling real estate. It's helping people with immigration, getting their utilities dealt with, whatever. And if you're not fluent or not very fluent, then I'm not as comfortable, and I don't want to be sexist about it, but I'm not as comfortable with women, particularly single women, living in the outskirts or out in the country. I was showing property once to some people that, they had found a bunch of stuff online, and I'm not going to say, no, I don't want to show you that, so I'm showing this, couple of really beautiful place out in the country. And the wife says, I love it. I love it. And the husband says, okay, I think we want to put in an offer. And I said, wait a minute. when you said you love it, does that mean like till death do you part? You know, like, because frankly, stuff out here doesn't sell as fast. The hot market. So when I'm shopping with somebody, while they're deciding what they love, I'm deciding whether or not what they love is something I could get them out of. If 6 months later they go, oh, what the hell are we thinking? You know, and if I can't get you out of it with at least your money back within about 6 months, I feel obligated to tell you that. And in the case of this couple, I said, okay, well, pretend it's dark. And there's this guy coming walking through your property with a machete. How are you going to feel about that? And what are you going to say? Now, what you don't know, but you would if you had a conversation with him, is that guy's great-great-grandfather and grandfather and father walked through that trail. I don't care where you put your fences or what you bought. They've walked down that trail coming back from cutting firewood or whatever every day, you know. So I guess what I'm saying is that the better your Spanish, the more comfortable you'll be anywhere. Neighbors take care of themselves. You know, you walk past your neighbors here like in the States, you know, and they may or may not say anything when they see somebody scoping out your house. But for the most part, people here really look after each other. And I guess I would prefer. You know, we have a dear friend in the audience that I like. Yeah, I'm good with this because it was a gated community with security. You know, and to me, I don't care if it's your car, your house, your spouse. Everything's a compromise in life, and security is one of the biggest things to me. I like gated communities. I like areas. I mean, right now everything's okay, but in a worst case scenario, there's the old saying here is when economically, when the United States gets a cold, Mexico gets pneumonia, and I've seen that happen. I think not so much in the future because Mexico really is a lot healthier economically. But if we did hit bad times, I was looking for it in COVID. When I mean, these people, they live paycheck to paycheck, and that's 1 week, not a month, or, you know. So when COVID hit, and I know there's all these construction workers, waiters, all these people out there, they can't go to their, in 2 weeks, they're not eating because they can't go to work. They're not getting paid. So I'm waiting and watching and talking to my friends in low places. How are the home invasions coming along? What about the burglary? Didn't happen. It didn't happen. So, you know, I'm much more comfortable than I was prior to COVID about that. But that's my thinking.
Does that answer your question?
Land is a very good investment, and using the expertise of an AMPI agent to tell you the logic of what you're trying to do with it. I've seen lots in Las Brisas double in the last year and a half. I've seen most land, I've been doing this for 2.5 years, I'm the baby, but I can tell you I've seen most land go up at least 40 to 80% somewhere in there. So land is a good investment, especially if you're in the Zavala. Now, when you go outside, again, you have to rely on the expertise of who's showing you the property to be honest with you and help you align your goals with that piece of land.
Oh, wow. So yeah, online, somebody asking about the new highway and what we called for a long time the Golden Corridor towards Dolores Hidalgo, which is where apparently they're putting an international trade center is going in there, more or less across the street from where La Burger is, if you know where that is. And it's beautiful. I mean, the plans that they have for it, it's it's a nice project. Divided highway. Right now, we call it the highway of death because there's so many accidents because of people trying to turn around or come out of the developments. But it's going to be 2 double lanes with a median, trees, crossovers, turnarounds. I think it's going to do a lot for the for investment in that direction, and just for just to, if nothing else, to cut down on the traffic accidents. And it's not a pretty road. It's not like, oh, you got to see this, and you would drive out that way, which will help places like Labradores, the development. What is that? 15 minutes or so outside of town. So that would be my answer for what the new highway is going to be. Really, really helpful.
Did you still have a question? With the yeah, it's you.
You're bringing up the new highway and stuff, sort of answers a little bit about what I'm thinking. In 2008, I purchased land out in the Cieneguita Chote area. At that time, in Cieneguita Chote area, okay?
Okay.
And there was no paved highway. You know where the new bridge is that they just finished out the way? That was not even paved at the time. So that road is now
You
paved.
bought before or after it washed out?
I bought before.
Okay.
In 2008. So my question is, that area has more housing being built, not commercial and not
Right, residential.
It's more residential, but there is along that highway more commercial things coming along. So my question is that still an investment choice?
I think so.
Buying
I think
land
so.
Or
I think so.
holding on to it for somebody to say, okay, I want to develop on this property. Do you want to sell it?
I think so. And more so if you've developed on. Does it have water and electric?
It can easily.
I'm not sure what that.
The housing all around my particular lot
All right.
all have water and electric on
Okay.
them, and I
it's
can
one
tap
of the
into
things.
that.
One of the things when people are like, yeah, it's accessible. It
Yeah.
can't. And I'm like, whoa. Show me the deed. What does that mean? Because, this guy allows the community to use his well, and then he dies and his son doesn't. So that's what my first question is always, do you have a actual CFE hookup to electric or nearby? And do you actually have Sapasma water, either from the city or from a well like Los Frailes is wells, sort of their own wells. And we know a number of people that do water catchment. I mean, it's not like you got to have it. There's one of the coolest places I've been involved with in a while. They did solar for electric, and they did catchment for water. And maybe every other year, they would have to buy one of the trucks of water to fill their cistern. So it's not necessarily a no-go if it doesn't have electric and water, but it does have a lot to do with the value.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, I don't know if it's a quick question or not, but pros and cons of purchasing if you're a citizen versus if you're a resident or not.
Resident, and I'll get a little lengthy and say, citizen, obviously, that's good if you're a Mexican citizen.
Is that because you're paying less?
Well, there's not, like the property tax, everything's the same. Like what difference it can make is when you sell. And there was a while when notarios who do not represent you, they represent the deal. They represent the government to collect taxes. They are quasi-government officials. And there's so there was a while when the notarios were only accepting permanent residents. So you were either a citizen or had permanent residence before they would extend to you the exemption that you can get. And it's a very complicated formula, so don't hold my feet to the fire over this, but I'm going to say with the residence exemption, if you're if you're a temporary resident, a permanent resident, or a citizen, once every 3 years, you can sell your habitation, and you're exempt from capital gain tax on around the first 200,000 of profit. And so that's but it really residency, as long as you have residency, immigration status, or citizenship, it comes out the same.
So my last question is, los fraccionamientos around here, I hear some fraccionamientos have, they're better built than others, and you don't want to invest in this one, but you do want to invest in that one. What should we be looking out for when we're looking at all of these new
Well,
builds?
of course, unabashed self-promotion, I would say get a real estate agent that knows what they're doing, because there's so many wrinkles that could be there. The first thing I want to see is a deed, is that the person, a lot of these properties, a lot of these developments are built with friends and family investors and stuff. And we have people all the time coming in wanting us to list their property, and all they have is a purchase contract. Oh, they don't actually own the property. They purchased it by contract from someone else. And so it's like, well, can we even do this? And a lot of the developments, we had one that I thought highly of, a very, very popular development, that for quite a while, the people that had bought there and lived there could not get their deeds because the developer had not finished the clubhouse. When the developer applies for pre-sale permits to be able to sell, they make commitments of how much green area they're going to give, whatever. If they do not fulfill those commitments, then the public registry won't issue the deeds to those properties. So it's a matter of due diligence and digging. First, if you're doing it by yourself, first thing I'd say is, let me see your escritura. Let me see your deed and your predial receipt, your annual property tax receipt are the first two things to look for, to see if the construction. And then another issue, since we're kind of getting into the weeds here, if you buy something recently constructed, I want to see a terminación de obra. I want to see a document that shows that they legitimately terminated the construction permit with the city, because in order to do that, they have to prove that they paid Social Security to the workers. I know people that didn't ask me until they had already done it and bought a property, and a couple of years later, they were having to come up with $30,000 just to keep their property, because the person that built it gave them a great deal, but he didn't pay his workers Social Security. And all of that, just like an employee, a maid, a gardener, if the person selling you the property can't present a labor settlement agreement at the closing, then you're potentially stuck with the labor suits because it goes against the property. Does that help at all?
You mentioned the term temporary resident, permanent resident, and citizen. By permanent resident, are you referring to holding a permanent resident card, permanente residente?
Yes. We have to, like when I got started, they had FM2, FM3, all these different. Now, basically, you're an FMN, a forma migratoria multiple, so that's like a tourist visa, or you're a permanent resident or a temporary resident. So now there's just two cards. I don't know. I think they've changed them recently. when I got mine many years ago, it was green. So I got like my tarjeta verde. I got my green card, man. You know. But yeah, that's those two categories, permanent or temporary. And for whatever it's worth, right now, the Mexican government, with the heart that they have, has created a special program now. It could end any day, but for the moment, we have people that either because of the hassle, because really to begin this process, technically, you got to go to the embassy, a Mexican consulate, wherever you're from, and begin the process there, showing proof of income, all of this stuff. And a lot of the consulates that I've had people deal with over the years, really, they're not there to help you. The Mexican consulates are there to help Mexican citizens in that country. So some of them kind of have that attitude. We saw people right after I'll just say the 2016 election. We saw a lot of pushback of people that would go into a consulate, and the people were not at all helpful. But you know, right now they have a special program that if you come to Mexico, if you can show that you were here, don't quote me on this, but I think it was prior to 2020 or 2022. If you can show in your passport that you were here like a couple of years ago, and you're here now, and your tourist visa has expired, you can go into immigration. We know several attorneys that are helping with this right now. You go into immigration and go, oh, I'm illegally in the country. What's the fine? And you pay the fine, and you're able to pay for your temporary resident card 4 years in advance, so you don't have to go back and renew it. And for not a lot of money, you walk out that day with your temporary resident card without having to leave the country and go through all of that. It was set up for people that got stuck here in COVID and were afraid to travel or couldn't, or like if they were Canadian, they couldn't. So the idea was, if you got stuck here because of something beyond your control, then they've given you a way to get regularized, as they put it. Does that help at all?
Well, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, we'll be around for a few minutes after.
A last plug for the Biblioteca. Please do help the Biblioteca. One of the major reasons we're so welcome here is what the Biblioteca has done for the community over the years. The bridge between the foreign community and the local community. There's a lot of architects and engineers today in San Miguel that got there because of scholarships from the Biblioteca. It's a shame that they lost their income from the newspaper, Atención. So do whatever you can to help the Biblioteca. Thank you.